Hi, I'm Will Pye, and this is the third part of Love Is, an answer to the question, death is certain, its timing uncertain, so what is important now? In the first video I simply pointed to this reality of love and posed the notion that it is what we are. In the second video, looked at what prevents us from experiencing ourselves as what we are. The voice in our head that we believe that we are. The identification with the separate self, which neuroscience and a fairly casual inquiry will show to be unreal, insubstantial, a fallacy, a creation, a wonderful illusion that causes us every bit of suffering in our life, personally and collectively. At the end of the second video, I introduced this idea of loving everything, simply being the love that we are as a means of being the love that we are. The ends and the means are, in this instance, one and the same, and I wanted just briefly to speak with you, to share from my own experience, and to ensure it is briefly, I'm just going to put the timer on, what that looks like in my experience. It's very easy to put together phrases, one's own or others, such as love this. You can look to Byron Katie or Jesus, or love thy neighbour, loving what is. But I thought it might be helpful to actually share what this practice looks like as it has developed in real life, in my experience. It began perhaps, certainly as I've developed the narrative as I share with people around the world about what I call radical gratitude these days. With experiences such as finding myself driving along and having another driver behave, maybe crossing lanes without indicating and causing me to brake, and experiencing this rage and fury and shouting and utter insanity, and simply noticing that it didn't change anything. That as a strategy to stop people from driving badly, which is what my ego told me it was, it just really didn't work. People still drove badly, it just created this extraordinary amount of stress and displeasure and suffering for myself. And I recall the day that I noticed this ridiculous egoic dance and just laughed and laughed as I sat there in the car. And this is an important point that I want to really stress in the world of contemporary spirituality, which is often either egoic coddling in disguise, disregarding the very reality of the need to move beyond our identification with this ego. It can, on the other half, or in the other direction, become support for a hypercriticality, for a self-loathing, for self-judgment. And I want to emphasize that whenever we find ourselves in this state, we are in the ego. Only the ego can judge the ego. Only the ego can think that we are anything other than delightful, pure spirit. When we are laughing at ourselves, we know we are on the right track. For pure spirit finds the narrow identity of me that we have created to be amusing, a curious delight. Only ego finds me to be wrong. This practice perhaps took on its most useful practical element when I, after many years of seeking to escape my pain that would be called depression within the conceptually flawed and practically useless, mostly, world of psychology as it stands in contemporary culture. Little but a framework for pharmaceutical companies to do their thing. A world where the ego is what we are. In this world, these experiences of despair and hopelessness that I was having would be called depression. So there was nothing skillful in my response. I sought to escape, not through the means that the corrupt pharmaceutical companies offered, but through alcohol, through sex, through, as time passed, more skillfully through work, or more socially acceptably at least, through exercise. I sought to escape this pain, this hopelessness, this suicidal despair as it was for me. This depression was so much, too much for my young, immature emotionality and psychology to experience, that I decided to end my life, and would have done had I been able to write a note that satisfied me, would allow my parents and sister to not suffer when they discovered I had taken my own life. On it becoming clear such a note was beyond my writing capacities, I resolved to go on living and to go into this pain, for this pain was an intelligence. For someone who values love and truth, this world is a pretty hopeless place. For someone first encountering the depths of their egoic confusion and idiocy, despair is an intelligent response. It's how we work with this intelligence, this sense of emotion, that is most important. And so with this that I had sought to escape, this gnarly self-loathing, this horrific depression, one day it came to me, this ridiculous idea. What would happen if I loved this? The pushing it away just hasn't worked. I've tried this strategy infinite times and it's failed consistently. So gingerly, hesitantly at first, I changed my posture with this part of me, with this part of my experience. And if through tears, as I recall it, I was on my knees, I thanked life for this pain. I welcomed it in. I loved it. And that was an instantaneous transformation, and at once the beginning of a long process of undoing that depression, the anger that was at the root of it. What it has created ultimately is the capacity, or what it was the beginning of, was the creation of the capacity to see such energy arise in my field, which it hasn't done for many months. I went through a deep healing experience recently that I have a feeling may actually have undone the very root of that energy structure. However, experience would tell me to be cautious with such statements. What I know is that when that energy arises, alcohol, SSRIs, sex, exercise, none of this is dependent anymore, required rather anymore, for I have love. I have the capacity through practice to greet that gnarly energy with love and see it dissolve in the love that I am. So this loving everything has considerable practical purpose. Of course, I would not necessarily suggest or advise that an individual begins with their greatest psychological challenge, their greatest mental suffering. But that is where ultimately they will complete, where this process will lead to. Start with the irritating customer service person. Wherever we notice our me voice tell us something is wrong and should not be, bring love. And please be most committed to bringing this love to yourself. You are pure spirit. You are loved in a way and on a scale that your human experience has offered nothing of. This love is with you now. It is you now. It is us now. If you'd like to find out more about my work, willpie.com is my website. There's another one there about the experience of joy that came from being diagnosed with a brain tumour, blessed with a brain tumour. You can also buy my first book on Indiegogo, or just make a small donation to support my recovery from my rather wonderful operation I had recently. And also, if you'd just like to receive some pointers towards this idea of radical gratitude, then connect with me on Facebook. I'm not sure if you can read my terrible writing. It says radical gratitude. Radical gratitude is this idea, this pointer of simply bringing gratitude, not just to the glory of being itself, but to every element within it, and in so doing to see that which we are not, which would not be grateful, which would be in resistance, diminish, and that which we are, this love, flourish. Thank you so much for listening to what I had to share. I hope it serves your journey. Much love.